In researching the project, we could not find the codes department of variance on our records to allow for the garage and outbuilding to be built on the property line. This really is, this is a request to kind of clean up the lot line. Since there wasn't a variance originally, this predates probably any variances that would have been allowed at that time. The garage was built on the property line, which obviously is the concern.
Okay.
So in the variance worksheet, it states that there are special circumstances for this particular lot that make it different from other lots in the same zone. The shape or shallowness of the lot makes it impossible to meet the required setbacks and still maintain a reasonable building area. Strict application of the provisions of the zoning ordinance impose an unnecessary hardship on the applicant or deprive the applicant of reasonable use of the land. The lot was platted and built on prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance. The existing structure does not meet the current setbacks, and the proposed addition is a reasonable expected use of the property. Special circumstances they state in the worksheet are: 1, the granting of the variance will not affect public health, safety, or welfare, in that the owner will be removing an unsafe, dilapidated structure and replacing it with new, up-to-codes building. 2, the granting of the variance will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, in that the footprint will be a mirror image of the neighboring property. And I think it's really hard to see, actually, pretty impossible from here. But the neighbor has a carport / garage on the other side that's identical to what they want to build.
Okay.
It's a shared, there's a shared common wall in between the two garages. You can see that back there is the neighboring house. The garage is a flat roof. So,
Steve, I have a copy of that if they want to.
Please, we'll call you up when it's
Just a minute.
appropriate. Thank you.
I'll finish this and then. The granting of the granting of the variance will not cause hazard or nuisance to the public, in that this will not change any stormwater runoff on any other property. 4, the granting of the variance will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the zoning ordinance, in that the existing footprint will only change on one corner. Staff has reviewed the request, recommend approval, and submit the request for the board's consideration and action. And just a note, technically, they don't have to come to this board for the variance, because they are allowed to, through our code of ordinance, to replace the structure as long as they do not increase the nonconformity, and they wouldn't be by what they're proposing to construct.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any questions among the board for Mr. Davis? Any questions among the board for Mr. Davis? If there are no questions for Mr. Davis, I will ask the applicant or the applicant's representative to please approach the podium. Please sign in with your name and address. Please state your name.
David Holman.
Mr. Holman, Barbara Doom has, that is what the appeal is listed under. Are you her representative?
I am.
And how do you represent her?
I'm her son-in-law.
Okay. Your last name again?
Holman, Holeman.
Okay. Mr. Holman, what would you like to add to this?
I was just going to say that I have the drawing, if it was easier for you guys to see, as opposed to the...
If you give us the drawing, we have to leave it. We did get a drawing in our packet, and I'll ask this board if they want a hard copy from Mr. Holman. Everybody okay? Mm-hmm. Thank you. We don't need a copy. We've got
Okay.
what we need.
All right.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
Only as what Steve had stated, it is a dilapidated garage that I'm surprised Mother Nature hadn't tore down already. We'd like to get this thing reconstructed before it does fall in on our car, for one thing, her inside there. We don't have room other than what you see there.
Okay. When the new construction is complete, is it going to change any of the water runoff characteristics that currently exist?
No.
Okay. And it is on, as Mr. Davis pointed out, it is on the current footprint.
Yes.
Okay. Does this board have any questions for, I'm sorry, Mr. Holman, is that right? Yes. No, okay. I always have an ink pen with me, and I always take notes, and
You're
I
fine.
don't have an ink
Thank
pen.
you. Ask me again when you need to.
Like they're coming from all directions.
Does anybody have any questions?
Let me make sure I understand Rob's comment and your comment. The new structure will be almost on the identical footprint as the existing structure that will be raised. Is that accurate?
Correct, with the exception of the one front corner that basically just squares the footprint up. And that's actually.
How many feet are we talking about? How big an area?
The part that we would want to add on, where you see the little shed
Yes.
in the building there, it's approximately 10 by 12. It doesn't have a roof over it or a structure around it.
So it would be to square that building up.
To square that building up, that existing structure up. It's my belief that it probably was at one time, and then over time, it got so bad that somebody may have took that back, because there is an old concrete slab there that looks like it was a part of the structure at one time. And if you look at the adjacent structure, it would be that way, and the ones across the street are that way as well. So it's my belief that in 1925, they built them all the same.
As we look at this structure, the property lines are to the left and behind and directly behind. Is that correct?
Directly behind and to the right is a common wall on that structure
Okay.
now, as we speak.
Okay, so did I hear right that y'all have a shared drive?
Yes.
Okay, so does the garage, this structure, does it affect the neighbors at all, or is it just,
No,
Okay.
it doesn't affect them at all, other than she wishes to do the same thing to her. She just can't do it at this point in time.
okay.
We had that discussion with her.
Are you gonna, I mean, is it going to maintain the same, like a pitch roof, or is it gonna have a,
So as it is now, you can see it's a flat roof.
Yeah.
It would be like a 412 pitch truss style
Okay.
roof.
Are you still planning to go right up to the property line, or are you coming off at all, or?
So we'd have to maintain the footprint on that
Okay.
property line. There's no.
Yeah, they're
If
going to
we
stay
come off of
exactly
it, then
Okay.
it's
on the
really a moot
footprint.
point. We can't even do it.
Okay,
You're staying exactly on the footprint, including the slab where you are extending the garage?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, I would think, you know, if you're trying to even, you know, put in the garage, I mean, that's tight anyway, and if even a conventional overhead door or whatever, if you're putting that on there, that 10 foot would really be a tight fit to get that in there, so I can see where you need a little extra room there
Yeah.
just to be able to get in and out
Yes.
the doors.
That's correct.
Vehicle, once you get in.
As it is now, what little bit she has there, she can barely open the garage door, or, I'm sorry, the car door to get out of the
Yeah.
car.
yeah.
I mean, it's not way less than ideal.
They didn't build
obviously.
cars that big.
They had horse and buggy, I think, back then. Didn't need a lot of room for it.
Does this board have any more questions for Mr. Holman? Any more questions for Mr. Holman? If there are no additional questions, Mr. Holman, you may be seated.
All right.
Is there anybody here that would like to speak for or against Appeal 3513? Please approach the podium and sign in with your name and address, please.
My name's Johnny Boucherie, and
Mr. Boucherie, do you promise to tell the truth?
yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Please continue.
The property 1124 North Main is the property behind this structure, and you've got a picture that's down that property line, 2 down from where you're at right now. There you go. If you look at that picture, and I have a picture on my phone that's very similar, you'll notice that the back of the building is actually curving out where the structure is kind of coming down a little bit.
Is your property to the left of the white fence?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
There was, I can't find it now, I don't know where it went, up at this end of that white fence, and just behind it, we had a survey pin.
Okay. When you say this end, do you mean
The
in
end
the
toward
lowest
us,
point of the
North
picture?
Main.
In the lowest point of the picture at the fence line?
You can point it
Yeah,
out.
please do.
Right here.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway, there was a survey pin out there that either's gotten pushed down or, anyway, I can't find it right now. I found it earlier this year. My mother-in-law owned the property. She passed in February. The property is in the estate, but the name has been transferred to my sister-in-law, Audrey Barone. So I know that's a little convoluted, but we had earlier thought about coming to the board about adding on to the side of the house out toward this fence. And that's one reason we had looked at the property line. Well, I can't find that pin right now. And that building, if you actually looked at that line from the top, it's not a straight line with those buildings as it kind of appears there. It runs down that fence and then comes over into the back corner behind them bushes where you can't see it there. There's a privacy fence that's perpendicular to these structures. And there should have been a pin down there, but I've never found it. And our only concern, I don't care about their 3-foot variance, that's fine. I presume that the city must have a 3-foot easement on property lines.
Something similar to that, but it's
Okay.
part of the code of ordinances for
Well, the
construction.
gas company came out, I guess last fall, and was asking us if they could run a gas line underneath that property within 3 feet of that fence. So, me and the gas guy, we were looking at pins. That's another reason we were looking at pins, to make sure that it was on us, and we told them, yeah, it'd be all right. Our only question is that building may already be on, or possibly even across the line in its condition. We just want to make sure that they don't cross the line, and now that we can't find the pins back, we feel like that ought to be verified where that line is.
Okay,
If it's verified, we don't have any problem with it. But I don't want them to build a structure and then find out that it's 2 inches or 1 inch over the property line, because then we're gonna have a problem with it. That's our biggest concern, is verifying that property line down through there before they build it. We don't care if they build it, that's fine.
okay.
We don't care if it's over the 3 feet. We just don't want it to be beyond the property line. And that property line needs to be verified, in our opinion.
And I want to make sure what I heard you said. You don't want it beyond the property line, not be on,
It can be on the property line.
but not beyond.
Right, I don't
Okay.
care what they do on their property.
I just-
They don't care what I do on
Okay,
mine.
I want to make sure that we get in the meeting notes exactly
Right.
what was said, so.
Yeah. But that, I feel like that line needs to be verified before they build anything.
Okay. I will talk to council here in a second concerning that, but my first question is going to be, does this board have any questions for Mr. Boucherie? Any questions?
Mr. Boucher?
Yes, sir.
If we make a condition to this variance, that the property line between your property and their property is verified by a certified surveyor,
Right,
You split the
surveyor.
cost
And,
with-
and the pin's put back in,
would you split the
because
cost
the
with them?
pin was there.
I don't think he heard you.
Would you split the cost of the survey, since you want to know where,
The executor says if they want it, they need to do it.
Okay, I need to hear that from you because she has not been sworn
Right,
in.
and that's what I'm saying. My
Okay,
instructions is, if they want it, they need to pay for it.
okay. Counselor, this is potentially a property line dispute.
Yeah, so that's really not where we come into effect.
Right.
What we come into effect is if you all are okay with them getting a variance from the 3-foot 3-foot variance from the property line, and then they need to, you know, determine that between the two parties. But that's not something the city, that's really a civil matter. It's not something the Board of Zoning Adjustment has jurisdiction over.
Okay. And Mr. Boucherie, what I understand from what our counselor said
Right.
is that all we can do is we can look at whether or not we grant the 3-foot variance, period. That is what that's what we're charged with.
But the variance includes to the property line.
Yes. Mhm.
So that involves property line.
Right. And we can, in the variance, include the statement up to the property line, but we don't have the authority to force anybody to verify the property line.
Okay.
And I think if you work with Mr. Holman on that, I think that if I were building something, I would want to make sure that I did not extend over the property line. So I would suggest that, and Counselor, I would suggest that you work with Mr. Holman to verify that, that we're not crossing the property line.
Okay.
Council, a question. Is there, I've always kind of understood, if there's been an existing encroachment and it's been there for, in this case, since the 20s, it's been there 100 years or so, is that considered?
Adverse possession?
Yeah.
They would have to, there may be a question as to whether they can file an adverse possession affidavit, but again, that's outside our purview.
Right. I understand that. I'm just curious about whether that's.
Could I,
Yes, sir.
in our ordinance, it also says something about non-conforming structures.
Yeah.
And this is a non-conforming, existing non-conforming structure. They do have the right to build back on the non-conforming site within 1 year of removal. It's not been removed yet, according to ordinance section, Article 8, 8.04B.
But a property line dispute, that's
That's not
outside of
us.
our
Yeah, right.
jurisdiction.
And I first used the word property line dispute. Obviously, it's not really a dispute.
Right, it's not been.
At this
It's
point,
not
but-
really a dispute, we just would like clarification.
Unfortunately, Mr. Boucherie, this particular board cannot make a decision based on what you've presented. I'm sorry that we can't, but I think it's
And that leaves us with, our recourse is to be against this.
okay.
Otherwise, we're for it. But
Okay.
in that case, we almost have to be against it. And I really don't want to be against it.
I understand.
You understand?
And one of the things that I would like to turn to council and ask, what should Mr. Boucherie do to verify this? Is this something that they just, I mean, outside of this board, obviously, but hire a surveyor? Is that
That would be
probably
one way
next
of
step?
doing it. But,
Okay.
you know, what we could do right now is maybe take a recess from this appeal and see if they want to go outside in the hallway and discuss anything. We don't have to,
Okay.
but, and see if they might want to come up with something, or we can go ahead and finish.
I mean, you understand what.
Oh,
we're
I
talking
understand, Mr. Boucherie. Mr. Boucherie, I'm going to ask Mr. Holman to return to the podium, please.
about. Yes, sir.
And you can stay put if you want. Mr. Holman, you've heard Mr. Boucherie's concern. And as Counselor has suggested, do we want to take a recess from this particular case and let you and Mr. Boucherie maybe talk about it and come to a conclusion?
We can, if he's adamant about a property line, no.
We don't have to, that was just.
Yeah, that's just a suggestion that council has made.
Well, let us have a conversation then. We'll see.
Okay.
I mean, that
Okay.
might be
Make a
best.
motion.
May I get a motion to
I
take,
don't think you need a motion.
oh, I
for
don't?
recess.
Okay, can I just call 3513
Yeah,
to
but I think
recess?
Landon would like to say something.
And I know you don't want my advice, but I'm gonna give it anyway. 'Cause
Absolutely.
every time I put a fence on my property, I got my neighbor, and we went out there and we tried as hard as we could to find pins exactly where the property line was, and we never could. And we said, let's put the fence right there, and that's gonna be the property line. Because we're talking probably about less than a foot, one way or the other. So, I
Oh,
mean,
it's
that's
probably
just,
less than that.
Yeah.
yeah. And believe me, property line disputes are expensive.
Oh,
And if y'all can
I'm
agree
well
to,
aware.
y'all can agree to where the property line is.
I've got more than one going on right now.
Okay.
So I'm not afraid
All right.
to be involved.
I mean, I know the situation, I mean, I've had in past, in projects I've done that where you could take a surveyor and they survey it from one end working there and from the other direction coming that way. And I've had houses that have, on one, the property line is 4 feet inside the house, but you go the other way, it's the other way. So sometimes, there again, you're back to, which one is the correct one? And
Well, there used to be a surveyor in the county that got several things wrong.
Right.
I've got a piece of property he surveyed.
So,
And even
Yeah.
the surveying company, which happens to still be in business in this town, so they won't back up his surveys if you have somebody else resurvey
Yeah.
it, which I did. And I spent the thousands of dollars to do it. And I've got somebody's building on a piece of property, or just across the line. So
Well,
it-
gentlemen, if you can take a few moments, and we're going to move on to 3514.
Okay.
And then we'll call you back. Are you
Okay.
guys cool with that?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
Mr. Davis, Appeal 3514, please bring that to our attention.
Sure. Boza Appeal 3514 is submitted by Gloria Hampton for the property located at 524 Lambert. The applicant is requesting a 5-foot side yard setback variance for the construction of a deck pursuant to Article 27 Schedule of Regulations, Schedule B, Appendix A, Zoning Code, City of Henderson, Kentucky. This property is zoned neighborhood business. Notices were sent to surrounding neighbors. We have not received calls concerning this appeal. The owner would like to add a deck on the northern side of the yard above the existing walkway that is there. World Changers has agreed to install the deck, but the property owner needs a variance. A variance worksheet. In the variance worksheet, they say there are special circumstances for this particular lot that make it different from other lots in the same zone. The shape or shallowness of the lot makes it impossible to meet the required setbacks and still maintain a reasonable building area. Strict application of the provisions of the zoning ordinances impose an unnecessary hardship on the applicant or deprive the applicant of reasonable use of the land. Adding a deck will allow accessible means from the side of the house, and adding a deck is a reasonable use of the land. Special circumstances they state in their worksheet are: 1, the granting of the variance will not affect public health, safety, or welfare in that it will be constructed in accordance to local codes. 2, the granting of the variance will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity in that other homes in the vicinity have the same structure. 3, the granting of the variance will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public in that all watershed will be contained on the property. 4, the granting of the variance will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the zoning ordinance in that the project will follow all codes and zoning ordinances. Staff has reviewed the request, recommend approval, and submit the request for the board's consideration and action.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Does this board have any questions for Mr. Davis? Any questions for Mr. Davis? If not, I'll call the applicant or applicant's representative to the podium for Appeal 3514. Please sign in with your name and address.
Good evening, board members, council, and chair. My name is Gloria.
Excuse me. Please state your name.
I'm sorry.
That-
I'm Gloria Hampton.
Ms. Hampton, do you promise to tell the truth?
I do. So
Thank you
help me
so much.
God.
What would you like to add?
I'm trying to get a deck on the side of my house. I'll be 63 in 2 more months. And it will help me for its accessibility and mobility of getting out and maybe sitting on my deck without having my bathrobe on and privacy, drinking a cup of coffee.
Can you?
And I've been there for 11 years. I took a house in foreclosure from Habitat for Humanity,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been there for 11 years.
Mr. Davis, as we look at this drawing, the cross-hatched
Yeah.
section, is that the deck?
That's the deck.
Okay, so
It's kind of like a raised walkway kind of.
okay,
Yeah, there's a walkway underneath it.
Mhm.
She's just wanting to elevate that to the threshold level and
Okay.
take it to this, on the side of the house.
okay, is it inclined or is it steps and,
I think it's steps.
okay,
Yeah,
It is
3
steps? Okay.
Yeah.
okay. And there is no roof structure, it's strictly a deck structure,
That's it.
okay.
Unless you want to put a roof on it.
No, no,
That's fine too. That's up
She's
to
like,
you.
"I'll
I think council would say that's outside of our authority.
yeah. Does this board have any questions for Ms. Hampton?
Is the deck gonna be, what, 5 feet wide? Is that what it's saying?
I don't know. Gary and somebody else came out and took measurements. They really didn't tell me how long, how wide, and nothing. I'm just great.
We don't have any measurements on here on the drawing, so that's why I'm
Gary,
trying.
Gary
It's-
of World Change.
okay.
It's
World
a 5-foot
changers.
setback variance.
5-foot setback, it's world changers,
Okay.
5-foot setback.
All right.
So that's, the assumption is that it is a 5-foot wide deck?
Here, I've got,
I'm
No,
pretty,
it does not.
oh, it just gives away right
Right,
away,
yeah.
my fault.
Does this board have any questions for Ms. Hampton? Mr. Davis, are you looking to see if you might have that information?
I think the deck is actually 6 feet because I think it's something along those lines in real measurements, but, they're allowed 8 foot for a side yard. So we say that it'll move into that 8 foot, 5 feet.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think
Okay,
she's
so
got.
she's gonna make a lot of, yeah, okay.
Is there a fence between you and that house next door?
Yes, it
There
is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking so, but I wasn't 100% for sure.
Any other questions from Ms. Ms. Hampton? Any other questions? Ms. Hampton, you may be seated if you like.
Sure, thank you.
Is there anybody here to speak for or against Appeal 3514? Anybody here to speak for or against Appeal 3514? If there is nobody here to speak for or against Appeal 3514, I'll close the open forum and ask for a motion, please.
Well, I was gonna make one, but can't find the sheet.
I'll make the
You
motion.
got it, Landon?
Yeah. I move we grant appeal number 3514 for a 5-foot side yard setback variance on the north side of the lot in order to be allowed to construct a deck on the north of the lot for the property located at 524 Lambert Street, which is currently zoned neighborhood business, with the following conditions. The deck addition will not divert water runoff on any neighboring property, nor will it alter the natural flow of water. 2, the deck addition will be built according to all building and zoning regulations of the city of Henderson. The evidence submitted through the written documents attached to the appeal and submitted through the testimony at the preceding hearing confirms, and we find, 1, the shape or shallowness of the lot makes it impossible to meet the required setbacks and still maintain a reasonable building area. 2, other residences in the area have similar decks. 3, the continued use of the property is for residential purposes. Further, the aforementioned evidence presented shows the granting of this appeal will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, as the improvement will be for the residential use consistent with the current use. Will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, since the surrounding properties are also used for residential purposes. For the same reasons, we find the variance will not cause a hazard or a nuisance to the public and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations for the same reasons.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Angel, may we get a vote, please?
Mac,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Landon,
Yes?
Ms. Hampton, Appeal 3514 has been granted in your favor. Some of the stuff that was discussed, just have your builder get with Mr. Davis, and it's just very routine stuff that goes into these motions. Your builder will understand it.
I understood very much.
Okay?
Enjoy.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Enjoy your morning coffee on your deck.
Yeah.
Thank you.
17 years at Tyson's now. 63, you want-
Our next appeal, 3515. Mr. Davis, will you bring that to our attention?
Yes. Proposed Appeal 3515 is submitted by David Osborne for the property located at 434 South Main. The applicant is requesting a 5-foot height variance and a 1-foot side yard setback variance for the south side yard property line pursuant to Article 4, Section 4.24B, Appendix A zoning code, City of Henderson, Kentucky. This property is zoned R2. Notices were sent to surrounding neighbors. We have not received calls concerning this appeal. The variance worksheet states that there are special circumstances for this particular lot that make it different from other lots in the same zone. The topography of the lot makes it impossible to meet the setbacks and still maintain a reasonable building area on the lot. Other special circumstances are that the topography of the rear of the lot reduces garage locations and length to meet the requirement. Strict application of the provisions of the zoning ordinances impose an unnecessary hardship on the applicant or deprive the applicant of reasonable use of the land. The current garage does not meet setbacks. The 14-foot height would require a 312 pitch, which is prone to watershed issues, issues on shingles. Special circumstances they state on their worksheet are: 1, the granting of the variance will not affect public health, safety, or welfare, in that there is a current garage in the same location that will not impact the view of the neighboring properties. 2, the granting of the variance will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, in that there are structures in this vicinity that do not meet current restrictions. 3, the granting of the variance will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, in that this building is in the rear of the property. 4, the granting of the variance will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the zoning ordinance, in that current garage does not meet the setback and is above the height restriction. We are building new and wider toward the other side of the property where the building does not meet the setbacks. Staff has reviewed the request, recommend approval, and submit the request for the board's consideration and action.
Mr. Davis, the new garage is not exactly on the footprint of the old garage, right?
No, it extends further.
Okay.
Toward is that the north side? Yeah.
Okay. Counselor and the board, the applicant, Mr. Osborne, is a partner of mine in one of my businesses. I do not have any involvement with his personal finances, his personal residence, anything like that. I just want to be complete disclosure on that. And the fact I am in business with Mr. Osborne will not sway any decision or any statement that I make. Does this board have any other questions for Mr. Davis? Any questions for Mr. Davis? If none, will the applicant please approach the podium and sign in with your name and address, please?
All right. Name's David Osborne.
Mr. Osborne, do you promise to tell the truth?
Only the truth.
Thank you.
Yes.
What would you like to add?
The purpose of this is to provide an off-street parking for under roof. We have, as Mr. Davis has said, the topography of the property is a little bit more, allowing us to not be very optional on where we can place this. So we've got a family of 4 soon to be driving. We have 2 of us currently, so it'd be nice to have the additional parking in the rear, under roof. We have the existing property, or the existing building. What we're doing is just adding to it, as we've said before. The current garage foundation is, like I said, about 32 inches from the property line, directly in line with the current driveway also. So the request to keep the footprint is does not allow us to push the property further, or the building further back. We'd just like to make sure that we can have these off the property, or off of the street. Additionally, the request for the height variance. We already have a two-story existing house there, so this will not be above the current house level either. So, which I think is a 5-foot, is that right? 5-foot variance, or 5-foot height?
With the height variance,
Yeah,
yeah. Whereas
yeah. So we're
you're
at
allowed to
two.
have 14 foot
Yep,
on a, but yes, being that it can never be larger than the house.
yep, perfect. So, that's all I've got.
Mr. Osborne, the drainage or guttering on the new configuration, is it going to significantly change where your water goes?
It won't significantly change, just because what we will do is just restructure the routing of it, because we already have a pretty good slant off that back of the property. So it's gonna allow it to run the same direction, same place, but we'll just be able to manage it probably a little bit better by having the great construction of this main over here.
Okay.
I live a block from there, water is a nightmare.
Yeah, yeah, so it just, I mean, it all runs
Yes.
right out
In your
front.
basement.
Yeah, in the basement. Anybody wanna come over and swim, they're more than welcome to.
When you get down to his house, you can come a block down and you can swim at mine.
Does this board have any questions for Mr. Davis?
This is still the entrance to the garage, I mean.
I'm sorry,
the
Mr.
doors to the
Osborne?
garages will be in the front, facing the front of the house, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any concern there with maneuverability? I've seen the diagram there, the third vehicle, there may be a little tight fit.
Yeah, the third bay will be a tight fit. We're going 16 additional feet back from where we currently are to allow us to maneuver in there. It will not be the new 16-year-old kid pulling in there.
I started to say, are you going with the 16-year-old parking that spot?
Yeah. I have old vehicles, and so my intentions are to get those in there.
So is y'all's alley behind there, is it concrete?
No,
or
it's gravel. hmm
Okay,
Yeah, it's gravel.
ours is concrete.
We have a retaining wall that's about 3 blocks high.
So that helps.
Yeah, so we don't usually get runoff from that. That water there usually runs out to the streets or further away from our property.
Does this board have any additional questions for Mr. Osborne? Any additional questions? If not, Mr. Osborne, you may be seated.
Thank you, sir.
Is there anybody here to speak for or against Appeal 3515? Please approach the podium and sign in with your name and address, please.
Hello, my name is John Redding. I'm the builder for Mr. Osborne.
Mr. Redding, do you promise to tell the truth?
I do.
Okay.
I just wanted to add, the existing garage that is there, I don't know if this was clear, it will be torn down, and the new garage that we're building will extend back roughly 14 foot into that hillside. If you're familiar with this area, it slopes off quite drastically. That alley back there, to gain any access from that alley to the garage would have to be built up 15 feet at least. I mean, maybe not 15 feet, but probably a story or so. So that's the whole reason we're kind of, with the setbacks, the foundation currently of where we want to, the current garage is 32 feet or 32 inches from the property line. We're going to stick with that. I know that sometimes I guess, setbacks go off the gutters and not the foundation. The gutters are actually 24 inches off the property line, if you're measuring off that. I have found the pins, so we're requesting it
Uh-oh.
be. What?
We don't hear that very often.
Yeah, the pins are set. We're going back the exact same footprint on the non-conforming side. It will increase the non-conformity, like I said, about 14 foot. Like if you're looking at this picture to the higher end of it towards that alley. The garage will also extend farther to the left. We have plenty of setback room on that side. Like I said, they're looking for off-street parking under roof. They have problems with the granary. And that's the whole reason for this garage. So I just wanted to add to that.
Thank you. Does this board have any questions for Mr. Redding? Any questions for Mr. Redding? If not, please be seated. Is there anybody here to speak for or against Appeal 3515? Anybody here to speak for or against Appeal 3515? If no one is here to speak for or against Appeal 3515, I'll close the open forum and ask for a motion, please.
I got a motion. I move that we grant appeal 3515 for a 5-foot height variance and 1-foot variance for south side yard of property for detached garage for the property located at 434 South Main Street. With following conditions: follow building codes, maintain appropriate water runoff, Don, would it be the first one? The findings are based on the fact that the lot was platted?
Before,
Okay,
prior
and built
to-
on prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance?
Yes.
And that the evidence presented showed that the granting of this appeal will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, and that the current garage in the same location will not impact the view of the neighboring properties, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, and that there are structures in this vicinity that do not meet current restrictions, will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, and that the building is in the rear of the property, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations, and that the current garage does meet the setback and is above the height restrictions. We are building a newer and wider towards the other side of the property where the building meets the setbacks.
Second.
Angel, may we get a vote, please?
Mac,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Landon,
Yes.
Mr. Osborne, Mr. Redding, Appeal 3515 has been granted in your favor. If you have any further questions, please see Mr. Davis. Thank you very much for your time this evening, and have a great evening. Our next appeal, 3516. Mr. Davis, would you bring that to our attention, please?
Certainly. Boza Appeal 3516 is submitted by Anthony and Sheila Westby for the property located at 610 6th Street. Applicant is requesting an 8-foot front yard setback variance for installation of a deck on the front of the house pursuant to Article 27, Schedule of Regulations, Schedule A, Appendix A, Zoning Code, City of Henderson, Kentucky. Property is zoned R3. Notices were sent to surrounding neighbors. We have not received calls concerning this appeal. The variance worksheet states that there are special circumstances for this particular lot that make it different from other lots in the same zone. The shape or shallowness of the lot makes it impossible to meet the required setbacks and still maintain a reasonable building area. Other special circumstances are that this will allow accessible means from the front door entrance, strict application of the provisions of the zoning ordinances impose an unnecessary hardship on the applicant or deprive the applicant of reasonable use of the land. Adding a front porch/deck will provide mobility out of the front door versus a small stoop, which is a reasonable use of the land. Special circumstances they state in the worksheet are: 1, the granting of the variance will not affect public health, safety, or welfare in that it will be constructed in accordance with local codes. 2, the granting of the variance will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity in that other homes in the vicinity include same structures. 3, the granting of the variance will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public in that watershed will be contained on the property. 4, the granting of the variance will not allow unreasonable circumvention of zoning ordinance in that it will follow all codes and zoning regulations. Staff has reviewed the request, recommend approval, and submit the request for the board's consideration and action. I do believe this is another World Changers project. Okay, yeah, this is another project for World Changers. They need a variance in order to proceed. World Changers has agreed to build them a deck on their house.
Okay.
Is there be a roof over this or not, or is this an open deck?
This is an open deck, I believe.
Open deck, okay.
Okay.
Should we get, when we get the applicants up, the reason I ask is because I just got a nod from the applicant to Steve, and Steve relayed. So for the benefit of having it in record. So
Sure.
we'll re-ask that. I'm sorry, Steve.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Davis? Any questions for Mr. Davis? If not, I'd like to call the applicant or applicant's representative to the podium.
I'm in pain, but I'm gonna make it. Lord,
Oh, it looked like he made you come
Lord
up.
gonna make. I've been in the hospital. I got bad news, but the Lord gonna keep me high. So
If you guys will sign in with your name and address, please. Are you both the applicants? Okay, Anthony and Sheila Westby. Mr. Westby, do you promise to tell the truth?
You promise to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Okay. Mrs. Westby, do you promise to tell the
Yes.
truth?
Yes.
Okay. For the recorded record, if you'll both state your name.
Sheila Westby.
Anthony Westby.
Thank you. One of the questions was asked is, does this have a roof? And there was a nod between you and Steve, but we need to get that on the record.
I can understand
So, is there a roof?
No.
Thank you. Does this board have any questions for Mr. and Mrs. Westby? Any questions?
Is the deck gonna have steps or ramp?
By me being so many accidents, I'm having trouble with the knees and stuff in the back. So
Oh,
I don't know which way they're gonna do it. There's supposed to be a deck in the front. I'm pretty sure they're gonna put a step. It will
Okay.
help mobility.
Okay. Any additional questions for Mr. and Mrs. Westby? Any questions? If there are no questions, you may be seated if you like.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody here to speak for or against Appeal 3516? Anybody here to speak for or against Appeal 3516? If there is nobody here to speak for or against Appeal 3516, I will close the open forum and ask for a motion, please.
I'll make a motion. I move that we grant appeal 3516 for an 8-foot front yard setback variance for installation of a deck on the front of the house for the property located at 610 6th Street with the following conditions. Follow all building codes, maintain appropriate water runoff. The granting of the variance, these findings are based on the fact that the lot was platted and built on prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance. The granting of the variance will not affect public health, safety, and welfare in that it will be constructed in accordance with the local codes. The granting of the variance will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, and that other homes in the vicinity include the same structures. The granting of the variance will not cause a hazard nuisance to the public, and that watershed will be contained on the property. The granting of the variance will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the zoning ordinance, and that it will follow all code and zoning regulations.
Second.
Angel, may we get a vote, please?
Matt,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Landon.
Yes.
Mr. and Mrs. Westby, Appeal 3516 has been granted in your favor. There was a lot of discussion. World Changers will know what this is about. They'll probably check with Steve and then start construction. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor, should I can go out.
Oh, here's mine.
Oh, thank you, officer.
And if you have any questions, you just call me. Or if I just gave you the type, or my written one.
I send the one I made to Sarah, will you get it? Can you write your email?
I would like to take Appeal 3513 out of recess. I'm going to wait for Counselor to return. I didn't see an ambulance pull up, so I feel pretty good
He's
that,
a pretty big old boy, I don't know.
It's only 3 floors down.
the police officer kept looking over his shoulder, so I knew we were okay.
I used to shoot with a lot of police officers. They're not that fast.
Better be careful, he's standing back
You
there.
don't have to be fast with a gun.
Yeah, I used to compete that way, so I was pretty quick.
We're waiting for
We
them.
can't do anything until council gets back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have her.
She keeps us between the white lines.
I like to play in the gray.
That's why
Well,
she's here.
I always say a good attorney will keep you out of trouble. A great attorney will get you out of trouble.
Yeah.
Right.
I used to write rules in the gray areas where you always had to work.
Yep. Gentlemen, we're going to return from recess on Appeal 3513. I would like to remind both of you, you're still under oath.
Yes, sir.
Would you care to summarize your discussion?
we're gonna not contest it. We're gonna let it go,
Okay.
if you all approve it.
Mhm.
There's still some,
His
there's some
concern,
fuzzy stuff.
his concern too is basically the sill plate of where the existing building's at, and we're not gonna move it. If we move it any at all, we're moving it in on Barbara's property.
Okay.
Okay.
But as far as any, as we discussed, any property line questions, I'll just say questions, are outside of us. We are.
That's fine. I
So-
understand that.
so
I
you
got a
guys-
lawyer, I understand.
You guys are going to resolve it among yourselves
Yeah.
independently.
But the
We're gonna try to, yeah. We're
Okay.
working on that. Yeah.
Okay. And from this board's perspective, we don't need to understand the resolution or what you guys are going to do, but I just wanted to make sure that it's going to be done.
Well, they can't build
Cordially.
it without being on our property.
Okay.
Physically, we don't want to trespass on him without him saying, hey, we're okay with you guys walking over there.
Okay.
Put siding on.
If-
Okay.
If the property line was the front of that desk, you couldn't put the signs on this side of it without getting on somebody else's property.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So does this board have any questions concerning the submittal, the appeal for either of these two gentlemen? If there are no additional questions, I will ask, gentlemen, if you would like to be seated.
Thank you, sir.
And Appeal 3513, is there anybody here to speak for or against Appeal 3513? Is there anybody here to speak for or against Appeal 3515? If there is nobody here to speak for or against Appeal 3515, I will ask, we'll close the open forum and ask for a motion, please.
I've got a motion.
What? Just a second.
Oh,
We're on 3513.
I'm sorry. I'm going to close the open forum for Appeal 3513 and ask for a motion.
okay, I'll put a motion. I move that we grant Appeal 3513 for a 3-foot variance to replace existing garage on the rear yard property line for the property located at 6 Colonial Court with the following conditions: install a proper guttering system to divert water away from the neighbors and follow all building codes. These findings are based on the fact that the lot was platted, and built on prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance. And the evidence presented showed that the granting of this appeal will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, and that the owner will be removing an unsafe, dilapidated structure and replacing with a new, up-to-code building. Will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, and that the footprint will be a mirror image of the neighboring property. Will not cause a hazard or a nuisance to the public, and that this will not change any stormwater runoff on any other property. And will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations, and that the existing footprint will only change on one corner.
Second.
May I get a vote, Angel?
Mac,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Langdon.
Yes.
Mr. Holman, Appeal 3513 has been granted in your favor. Thank you for your time. Mr. Boucherie, thank you for your time. I appreciate it when people come forward and have questions. It makes for, I think, a much better resolution. So,
I'd rather know up front than have a problem afterwards.
yep. Is there any other business to come before this board this evening?
Motion, do we need to move for these minutes?
April 10th.
Yeah.
Well, can I finish? Okay. Is there any other business to come before this board tonight? If not, I will ask for a motion to accept the meeting minutes of April 10th, 2024.
Make a motion to approve as submitted.
Second?
Second.
May I get a vote, please?
Mac,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Langdon.
Yes.
May I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you.
Angel.
Let me know if you didn't get that.
Okay.
You too.
Thank you, Dawn.
I got a good,
How did you enjoy
Got
the
a thought.
commencement week?